For decades, India has faced a persistent multi-front pressure campaign along its northern borders. Beijing has systematically pushed against Indian sovereignty, a strategy designed to keep New Delhi in a permanent state of border defense. On the Western Front, Beijing has entrenched itself by backing Pakistan. They funded and constructed the massive China-Pakistan economic corridor through disputed territory, building a permanent Chinese economic footprint in Pakistan-Occupied Kashmir. Simultaneously, on the Eastern Front, China projects authority by renaming regions in Arunachal Pradesh. India's attempts to push back diplomatically, like raising concerns about Uyghur Muslims in Xinjiang, have had little effect. Beijing's internal policies remain insulated from international pressure. This prompted a shift in India's strategy. Defense in Kashmir was no longer enough. To influence Beijing's behavior, New Delhi needed a counter-pressure point: Tibet, a region where China's control is physically firm but remains psychologically fragile. By focusing on Tibet, India has moved from a stance of reactive border management to a strategy of asymmetric deterrence. China's military conquest of Tibet in the mid-20th century forced thousands into exile, creating a displaced population with deep ties to their homeland. This physical occupation left Beijing with a persistent problem. While they control the land and the borders, they have struggled to secure the ideological allegiance of the Tibetan people. This resistance centers on the 14th Dalai Lama. From his residence in Dharamshala, India, he remains the recognized spiritual and administrative authority for Tibetans, both in exile and within the plateau. By hosting the Dalai Lama, India developed a framework for Buddhist diplomacy. This has created cultural and religious alliances in sensitive border regions, where local populations share deeper ties with Dharamshala than with Beijing. The strategic weight of this alliance is clear in history. India's decision to grant the Dalai Lama asylum was a key factor leading to the 1962 Sino-Indian War. Choosing to host a government in exile established Dharamshala as a permanent diplomatic hub. It provides India with a direct line of influence into Tibet's internal affairs, a factor Beijing cannot ignore. Beijing has responded to this influence with increasingly restrictive domestic policies. They are now providing military training to young Tibetan children, attempting to forcibly align the next generation with the Chinese state. China has also interfered in religious succession, most notably through the disappearance of the Panchen Lama, an act designed to control the selection of future Tibetan leaders. These actions are a preparation for the eventual passing of the current 90-year-old Dalai Lama. China intends to install a state-approved successor to finalize their control over Tibetan Buddhism. India's leverage lies in its ability to bring these internal Chinese actions to the international community. New Delhi can choose to highlight religious suppression and human rights issues on a global stage, turning Beijing's domestic policies into a diplomatic liability. This creates a new dynamic. China's internal security concerns in Tibet are now tied to its external behavior toward India. This strategy highlights a double standard. China expects total non-interference in Tibet, while simultaneously maintaining a deep involvement in the infrastructure and politics of Kashmir. India has signaled a new operational reality. If Beijing continues to involve itself in Kashmir, New Delhi has the means to escalate the Tibet issue in response. This tension is playing out now. Pakistan-Occupied Kashmir is seeing significant unrest, with local protesters demanding an end to Pakistan's administration of the region. Historically, China would use its economic and political influence to stabilize such a region to protect its CPEC investments. However, Beijing has remained noticeably silent during the current PoK uprising. Intervening in a region India claims as its own now carries the risk of India increasing diplomatic pressure regarding Tibet. By utilizing Tibet as a counterweight, India has changed the cost of Chinese interference. This creates a strategic environment where Beijing must weigh its support for Pakistan against the risk of Indian escalation on China's own sensitive borders.